There we go. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the webinar today. I'm Rhoda McVeigh with KMA Human Resources Consulting, and we support growing and sophisticated clients all throughout New England with any human resources support they need, usually through outsourcing, from administration to recruiting to compensation, coaching and counseling, some HR training, that kind of thing. And I'm really pleased to be with you here today to talk about things to be aware of this year relative to human resources areas to be concerned about as a business owner. And I'm going to talk, even though this looks like a small agenda, I'm going to really talk about two areas divided into things that should be considered on a corporate level around areas of focus this year, and things around the employee experience, now referred to as EX. It used to be employee engagement. It's now referred to EX, the employee experience. So I'll be breaking it down that way and rising to the challenges of the emerging experience that we're seeing after this last year. So, we've of course just been through an historic time and we're still going through it. Even if COVID suddenly disappeared, it's extremely unlikely the workplace will ever be the same as it was before. In March 2020, every company in the USA and beyond became remote, virtual, literally overnight, over the weekend of March 13th through March 15th. And we're trying to continue to improve on this, all of us. If you didn't keep good notes, what you did at the beginning, or you haven't been keeping good notes, you got to catch up with it and do that now. You really need to reflect on what has gone well, what went well over the last year, what didn't go so well, how often you had to adapt or pivot or make changes to yet another need, and make sure you gather data from all of your employees at all levels about what you did to get through this last year and hopefully sustain the best parts of your business that you possibly could. Because this will inform your business continuity plan, the pandemic plan of the future. Scientists tell us there will be other types of pandemics coming. I know we don't want to hear that, but they will probably come, and when we least expect them to. And we definitely want to have that business continuity plan, know what we did during this past year and a half or so that has worked and what has not. You want to be sure to institutionalize your company pandemic plan: who, what, where, when, how, and revisit it at least twice per year to ensure it's being updated as your company evolves. So let's start with some corporate considerations around talent acquisition and onboarding. Remote. It's all about remote and exploiting the remote and virtual workplaces. If you didn't have the technology to source, interview, and hire remotely at the beginning of 2020, you'd better have that now. There is a war for talent going on again, and only those who use technology are going to have a chance of winning it and getting the best talent out there. Embracing remote and virtual work has allowed companies to have a wider talent pool from which to choose, save on T&E, travel and expenses, since you don't have to meet the candidate in person, save on relocation, since people can work from wherever they are now. And a robust applicant tracking system, an ATS, is a basic for companies that hire regularly, and especially if they hire at scale. They hire lots and lots of employees, hundreds of employees every year, have buildups or peak periods where they're hiring even more. A robust applicant tracking system parses a resume's content into categories and then scans it for specific keywords to determine if the applicant should be passed along to the recruiter or not. And if you get thousands, hundreds and thousands of resumes or applications for every job you post, this is the only way you can possibly get through them, is to have this this AI help with it. Even though the electronics will miss some good candidates, you don't have the manpower or enough humans to actually go through stacks and stacks of resumes. And getting tired with it will also, fatigue with it will also prevent you from finding it on your own. So just let the machine do that initial look for you. You can no longer rely on emails and phone calls to reach out to candidates. Candidates want chat-based messaging, real-time interaction now. Everyone has a phone in their hand, right? Many applicant tracking systems now have SMS capabilities to communicate with candidates via their mobile phones. Remind them about an interview or let them know where they are in the process to allow you to really keep up with them, because people want to know. And it allows you to do so quickly and electronically without having to answer a phone call or always an email. Also, you want to consider what's going to work best for your company: to buy the talent or to build it, develop your employees, or some hybrid thereof. We're seeing a shift to more of a buy and rent the talent versus build it. And this is really due to a sizable amount to the gig economy. People who want to control when, where, how they work, and who they work for. Also, from companies that need short-term help and don't want to invest in a long-term relationship. It's really happening a lot more buying the talent out there. We will talk about employee development a little bit more in just a few minutes, but remember, there are definitely learning curves with every approach, whether you build the talent internally or hire it from outside. And external hires take really a good 6 months or more to assimilate into how things work within your company, how things get done. You can't afford either, though, to ignore the talent you already have and continuously evaluate potential and how to develop those with potential. So you definitely want to have a plan about what works best for your company and how to maximize that. The candidate experience, or CX can also stand for customer experience, but the candidate experience is important. Make the application and interview process as streamlined as possible and make sure it works on mobile. It's got to work on a mobile platform. Because there is such a war for talent right now, top talent will not embrace 5 or 6 separate interviews, even virtually. They will feel like that's a waste of time, and they want to see a company that's more efficient than that. Otherwise, you're going to risk losing talented people to companies that are much more agile in their hiring process. So figure out how to streamline that and make it the most efficient it can be. In terms of remote onboarding, you want to do something called pre-board. You want to reach out and engage people from the moment they accept your offer. Send them materials, send them FAQs to review ahead of time, send them pictures and bios of the people that will be on their team, their virtual team, or the team that's actually in the office. And you always want to ensure that technology arrives at least 1 day before their start date so that they can get up on that and you can start electronically onboarding them from the date of hire that you want to have them begin. And if you haven't automated your paperwork yet through your HRIS and are allowing people to be able to do that electronically, you really need to get on that and be sure you're doing that as well. And create and communicate an orientation schedule and an onboarding schedule ahead of time. Onboarding really refers more to the paperwork of getting people into your systems. Orientation is assimilating people into your culture, how things get done, having them meet people, things like that. You also want to ensure that their first 2 to 3 weeks, if not month or two, are scheduled, and that people know where they're supposed to be, when, how they're supposed to connect with others. Communication is also really key. Have the people that do the hiring, the recruiting or talent acquisition team, be sure they do stay in touch with new hires, just to be sure that things are going the way they expected them to, because when we lose touch with the people we went through such a process to hire and they're not getting what they need, we risk losing them very quickly. We also recommend connect your new hires with a culture buddy. This is someone who you would normally have them maybe go to lunch with the first day in an office setting, but this is someone that takes the place of the over the cubicle wall kind of comments like, where's the supply room? Or, you know, what time do people take lunch around here? Things of that nature. Make sure the manager, the hiring manager for your new people, lays out expectations by week, if not the first couple of months. What should you be learning? What kind of training am I going to do to get you up to speed? How am I going to get your systems where they need to be? Things of that nature. So continue those regular check-ins, stay close to the new hire and their manager, and intercede if you need to be sure they're getting the attention they need. Really important. So let's take a look at this. This is a slide from the Monster Future of Work 2021 survey, which was released in late January this year, that shows these top 3 anticipated challenges among recruiters that were surveyed. Skill gaps is one concern, especially in finance and technology sectors. Then work-life balance expectations, right? It's been in our lexicon for many, many years. It's not going anywhere. Now, more than ever, it refers to remote work and scheduling flexibility, new health policies, the reduced workplace footprint, virtual recruiting. Virtual recruiting is a challenge for people that haven't done it. They're still trying to figure out how to do it. And the worry is not really with having to interview via Zoom or Teams platform, but more one of the challenge of getting a true feel for culture and values alignment from the candidate via an on-screen presence versus an in-person presence. A culture fit with someone that you may never meet, even when you hire them, after you hire them. So this was fascinating in terms of what recruiters feel they're going to be facing in terms of challenges. And just a few more stats here from that same Monster Future of Work 2021 survey shows the hurdles employers feel they'll need to overcome this year in 2021 and beyond to win the talent war. They feel they're going to have to do a really good job of assessing the candidates in this type of an interview platform, identifying quality candidates quickly. Again, I spoke a moment ago about being agile in your process, effectively screening candidates pre-interview. Have some sort of screening system, whether it's a 5-minute call or you have 5 pre-screening questions through your applicant tracking system that they answer before the application is completed. But be effective as you can with basics. Like if you don't offer health insurance, be sure you ask that as a pre-screen so that you don't take time to schedule someone and then find out halfway through the interview they really need health insurance. It's a deal breaker, but your company doesn't offer it right now. And getting a response from and engaging with candidates, it's that connection with people, right? Building that connection through this electronic medium. How do we get a vibe and connect with people, really connect? That's a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for a while, for sure. Something that's really important to people looking for new employers and companies now is corporate citizenship, the purpose and socially responsible companies. People want to work for companies with a purpose. Citizenship, trust, social responsibility is going to be huge. People want to work for companies that stand for more than the shareholder enrichment. They want to work for companies that care about society and care about their employees. Does the company advocate and support volunteering? Does it care about the environment? Does it care about the community? Does it shop, eat local? Along with statements about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, companies are crafting inclusive and socially oriented mission statements. This is a new theme in business, it really is. And I have a couple of examples here, Cisco and Target, to show you the statements that they have on their websites about what their citizenship and their purpose is. For Cisco, it's to shape the future of the internet by creating unprecedented value and opportunity for our customers, employees, investors, and ecosystem partners. That's a very forward-looking statement. The internet is global, it's international. Ecosystems, investors, customers, employees, everyone is inclusive here. So you get the sense that this is more than just being a fantastic technology company. Target has a couple of statements too that's very interesting, to help all families discover the joy of everyday life. All families. It doesn't just mean the families that work for us, the families that shop with us, all families. Also, as a good neighbor and global partner, we're committed to serving and strengthening the communities where we operate, putting the needs of people, communities, and the planet at the heart of how we work today to help build a better tomorrow. That is very aspirational. It's very global. It's inclusive of all peoples all over the place. And the planet, talks about the planet. So these are the types of statements and philosophies that companies are not only adopting, but they're taking action on. And this is going to be important to winning this war for talent in terms of attracting people that want to work for companies with a purpose. So let's go back and look at some other corporate considerations in the world of policies. Some policies that you should really make sure you have in place right now, or you're updating to be most up to date on. Remote worker policies, how you will decide which positions qualify for remote work or not. You don't want to be so black and white in that policy that it backs you into a corner, but you need to be able to help people understand how you fairly make decisions on which people will be able to have more flexible work options, work from home more often, whatever it might be. And also flexible work policies related to safety at home and home offices, workers' compensation, ergonomics, things of that nature. How are you helping people that have home offices make sure they're set up safely from postures and posture and carpal tunnel syndrome and all that kind of thing. Very big also is employer privacy and confidentiality issues, cybersecurity. Sometimes people that have been in an office setting where you might have a great firewall, they aren't familiar with VPNs or how they have to take care of privacy and confidentiality. Printing company documents at home, how are they disposing of those company documents? You need to be very careful about that. Be sure there's a policy and training around that. Also, remote work conduct. What is your policy on drug and alcohol use, and cannabis during work hours when they're working remotely? And you've got to be very clear about that. And harassment discrimination policies have been around for a long time. They're still very important, more important than ever, because there always has been the ability to harass and discriminate in the online environment through, say, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but it's becoming more and more a problem now that more people are working remotely and using the airways to discriminate and harass people. So you want to be sure that your employees that are remote or virtual know how to report concerns or violations of whatever your policy is. So again, this is another slide I thought was interesting from the Monster Future of Work 2021 survey that shows you the most popular policy changes by business size segment. The large size businesses are more bound to have popular policies around remote flexibility, EAP, employee assistance programs, reducing the workplace footprint, because the large companies are realizing commercial real estate is expensive. And they're realizing that there are economic gains by reducing their workplace footprint. Medium companies more likely to have some sort of salary protection in place. Paid family leave is more and more important. It's getting more and more important on the state level these days, as well as what we're seeing through regulations. Paid volunteering days, again, going back to that corporate citizenship and purpose. Small companies, which Monster refers to as SMB, small businesses, are most likely not really to have a whole lot of changes to their policies, and that's more a byproduct of economics. They have very small budgets, they have small employee bases, etc. In terms of the job type, in terms of what's important to them, white collar workers really prefer remote flexibility. Gray collar workers really prefer training, getting training and skills training as well. And is gray collar is a new term to you. You know, I'm sure you know what white collar means and blue collar means. So gray collar is everyone else outside of being a white collar or a blue collar worker. So policies are something you really need to pay attention to. Going back to other corporate considerations, gender wage gap and equality. Even though progress has been made to narrow the gender wage gap, COVID created a huge setback and has led to a she session. Women are leaving the workplaces by huge amounts, more than we've seen in many, many years. And industries where women work were more heavily impacted by layoffs. Women take on a larger share of caregiving responsibilities. They just do. That's a proven fact over and over again. And so they were forced to withdraw due to childcare responsibilities or sometimes even elder care responsibilities. So burnout has hit women very hard. What you can do is use data to your advantage to track where the gender regressive impacts are happening in your own company, in your workplace, such as job loss, attrition, that sort of thing. Also look at a gender breakdown on who's leaving and why, and who's being promoted. And again, flexible work policies, right? That are very big, very important to people in the workplace, something you need to consider this year and beyond. Something else to think about is employee monitoring technology. We're seeing a lot about that these days as we grow our remote workforce. The demand has surged for software that can monitor employees remotely. Programs that track keystrokes, snap pictures of what we're doing online, how much time we spend on Facebook versus how much time we spend on Excel. Studies show that 1 in 5 companies already has monitoring software to surveil employees while working from home or are planning to do so. But where's the balance for business necessity versus intrusion and privacy? That's something that's currently being worked out, and people are considering regulations around it, putting limits on what employers can or can't track about their employees. Studies have shown that employees who are monitored electronically that work remote have higher stress levels, are afraid to speak up about concerns, they burn out faster. And with hundreds of thousands of remote workers, this may be helpful from a productivity tracking perspective, but trust and accountability are going to be very important to your talented remote employees. There are ways to measure whether work is getting done without monitoring technology. Try to use them. Figure what's going to work best for your culture. A little bit more about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion culture. The incredible amount of focus on DEI stemming from the Black Lives Matter growth in 2020 has made DEI really front of mind for many company leaders, as it should be. We've seen companies rushing to publish their positions or philosophies on DEI. The good news is more companies are looking at DEI as a business strategy, not just a human resources strategy. And we've also seen companies that will only do business with other companies that have a commitment to a DEI culture through their position statements, through their actions. Companies are rushing to hire heads of DEI, very big right now. You'll see many job openings out there for those. And DEI is important to your employees. We already talked about that a little bit earlier, current and future for sure. Creating a culture is going to take more than training for awareness, but actually moving to action. And that action is creating a workplace, virtual or otherwise, for differences that people bring with them to work. The whole employee, it's all about the whole employee now, not just the worker side of the person you hire. Other effective practices include listening to and acting on employee needs, giving employees safety to speak up and ask questions, holding HR teams accountable for DEI metrics and programs, and holding business leaders accountable for transparency about their commitment to DEI. Education here is important as well. Many HR professionals feel uncomfortable with the topic and thus have limited skills in this area. Don't write it off as a lack of interest, although surely there's some of that there. It's more the need to continuously educate ourselves and our employees. And there are more and more resources out there these days on the web, through books, through groups, to really educate ourselves and get up to speed where we need to be to support our company in embracing a DEI culture, current and future. Vaccinations. We could do a whole hour on the whole vaccination topic for sure today, but we're not. We're going to touch on it. Companies are wrangling with what to do about COVID and other vaccinations. EEOC has said that companies may require their employees to be vaccinated, but the need must be job-related and consistent with business necessity. For example, people that work in hospitals or nursing homes, clearly those people need to be vaccinated for the protection of the people they are caring for. Employees can also have medical and/or religious reasons why they don't want to get vaccinated. What we're seeing is a lot of innovation around employee incentives, employers to get their employees vaccinated. Examples are offering them a $100 bonus to get vaccinated, 2 hours paid for each vaccination to go get their vaccination, so a total of 4 paid hours, rides from Uber to get to and from vaccination sites, that kind of thing. There's no easy answer or right approach to vaccinations and taking a stand on it, but companies are having to wrangle with it. Is what is our vaccination strategy? What is our policy on it? And we know there will be lawsuits. Things like this always get decided when they're new, and we're trying to wrangle with, do we require it? Do we not? What do we do with people that don't, etc. We know that things get worked out in the courts. So more to come on that for sure. But this is the year. We're right in the throes of it right now. It's on the news every single day. So this is more data from the Monster Future of Work survey about DEI. And it tells us that 45% of candidates expect to learn about a company's DEI efforts. Candidates, right? They want to know when they're shopping your company, when they're interviewing with your company, what is your DEI? What is your DEI policy? What are your efforts? And it's even higher in the UK, because the UK, for anyone that is aware and knows the UK as business with anyone in the UK, they're very diversified in the UK, much more so than we are in the United States. So it's 56% in the UK want to know about a company's diversity efforts. And 37% of responding employers say they don't have a strategy. They don't have a strategy. And the small businesses are more likely to say no, they don't have a strategy around whatever their diversity efforts are. So clearly there's still work to be done here. And not just having a strategy, but actually a strategy that we enact, we put into place, that kind of thing. So now let's talk about the employee experience, EX, the employee experience. Talk about development and training opportunities relative to those employees. COVID has certainly had an impact on how we develop talent, and it's really been unprecedented. We're under more pressure than ever to effectively upskill our employees using purely digital resources. Training in all areas are now virtual. That changed overnight, just like going remote changed overnight. This represents not only a technology shift, but a mind shift and a cultural shift. Everyone has had to up their game on how they approach learning and development, and employees want learning and development more than ever. So let's talk about these terms: reskilling, upskilling, skilling. Reskilling refers to training employees with new skills for jobs other than what they may be doing right now, like cross-training or another job within the company that's not within the normal career path. Upskilling is growing employee skills and abilities in their current roles, such as for new technology, new best practices coming out, that kind of thing. Then there's skilling. Skilling is growing employee skills in the power skills now of listening, communicating, managing time well, prioritizing, leading, coaching, collaborating. Those are considered power skills, and skilling is very important right now in those areas more than ever. Companies that reskill, upskill, and skill their employees can expect a more cost-effective, agile, motivated, and productive organization. So think about that. Blended learning is becoming more and more prominent. Companies are employing a combination of virtual classroom training, self-paced modules, on-demand learning. Virtual learning also needs to be in very small segments for best retention and application. Just think about Zoom fatigue. You know, when you're connected to this terminal all day long, you know, you're kind of glazed over in your eyes by the end of the day, if not sooner than that. So you need to have small snippets where that's concerned. And the demand for constantly changing and updated content is actually going to explode. You're going to see many new players entering into and exploiting this demand. A lot of new vendors reaching out to you about how they can reach your virtual and remote workers. Here's what they need. Here's what works best with them, etc. Interactive content is going to be super important. The gamification of learning and training. Think about the video gaming generation and questions related to that kind of thing. Having employees' ability to respond to questions within the training problems, situations, getting immediate feedback about the training they're going through. Polling is very big with online and virtual training. That gets you interactive. It gives immediate feedback to show what percentages responded in the poll. Interactive content also like flip cards, videos, interactive exercises done collaboratively with other remote participants in different parts of the country or even the world. Very, very important right now. And it makes the learning much more memorable and engaging. And it's really a good idea to have short quizzes throughout the training versus one long test at the end, because it just, again, keeps that engagement going. It reinforces the learning in small slices, which is what you want, versus all the way at the end of an hour training. What did I learn in the first 10 minutes? I forget. It's much better than plain old multiple choice as well in terms of using fill in the blank, drag and drop, things like that. Microlearning is something we're seeing a lot more of. The delivery of bite-sized, laser-focused content. It really lends itself well to hot topics such as DEI, belonging, resilience. It's almost like giving your team the 5-minute inspirational thing at the beginning of the day that you want them to think about and be intentional about today. What do you want them to focus on? It mirrors the way we consume content, if you think about it, every day now, you know, through apps like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. Microlearning really does lend itself very well to better retention too, as well. It really does. And that's very hot right now. You'll see a lot more coming forward on that. So ongoing learning and development is, you got to have a strategic focus on it. What's going to work best for your company, your employee base, the things that you need to train your employees on and continue to make them aware of. And it's got to be endorsed at the top. I call it the tone at the top. If it's important to the CEO, the president of your company, that importance is going to flow throughout your company. So know what the tone at the top is. Know what the person at the top is going to endorse. Companies that don't have a continuous learning culture will see its business performance suffer also. Survival in today's business world is all about staying relevant, evolving, pivoting. It's really continuing to be agile and move. There's no question there. So here's another slide from the Monsters Future of Work 2021 survey. It shows the most respondents agree that employees and employer share the responsibility for upskilling. It's kind of half and half. Employers a little more know they got to take it on and make it important for them, for the employees, for the candidate to show its importance. So this shows candidate here. And in terms of most likely to say we're in this together by industry, small businesses know they have to because they have a small force. They got to keep them trained and updated. Gray collar employers know they need to train their people to make them agile and able to adjust to whatever's going on. Transportation and logistics industry and leisure and hospitality, certainly leisure and hospitality, that's constantly changing, no question about that. So it's about half and half. The employers and employees realize they need to upskill. So let's talk about some benefits trends for the employee experience, the EX. And you want to talk about changing overnight in March 2020? Well, welcome to telehealth. Telehealth is here to stay. And Forbes referenced a study that showed prior to COVID, only 25% of respondents had used telehealth. Now, almost 60% report more likely to have used or will use telehealth. And another 33% said they would even leave their current physician for a provider who offers telehealth. That's a major shift in a very short period of time. And it's going to constantly continue to evolve. Hospitals and clinicians were slow to adopt initially telehealth. A lot of that was regulation based in terms of what hospitals and healthcare providers could get reimbursed for doing telehealth wise versus in person, that kind of thing. But fortunately, our governments, our local and state and federal governments quickly knew they had to adapt to be sure employees and people in general could get health without having to go out in public or be close to other people, the social distancing we need to be aware of. The technology growth is supercharged in this area. It really is. And, the hospitals and clinics are seeing the same kind of savings that other companies are, right? Increased benefits of time, travel, other resources, increased insurance coverage as a result to really incentivize people to use telehealth more than anything else. Something along benefits that's going to be bigger than ever is portability of benefits. HSA, health savings accounts versus flexible savings accounts. For those of you who are familiar with those two things, an FSA, a flexible spending account, generally has an end date at the end of a calendar year, or maybe there's a little bit of a grace period where you have to kind of divine how much should I have taken out of my pay, but make sure I use it by the end of the calendar year, whereas HSAs are where I can put money into that health savings account. My employer usually has some money they contribute to it as well, and I don't have to use or lose it. If I leave the company, it goes with me. Those are very hot right now, and more companies are switching over to HSAs from FSAs. 401k match is more important than ever. People are really starting to think about the future. They're reading a lot about how economic downturns like we've experienced over the last year negatively impact someone's ability to retire at some point in the future. And of course, 401ks are portable. When you leave a company, sometimes companies will let you stay in, or they'll let you shift it over to an IRA or whatever it might be. But very, very important. Requested studies still show that health insurance and generous paid time off are still the most in demand benefits. Employees want their employers to have richer programs where they pay less for premiums and less out-of-pocket costs. And you especially see those really rich programs in the tech sectors, because the competition to hire the best tech employees is so stiff out there, especially over this last year. But it's more and more employees are looking for employers that help them with the health insurance and the premiums. However, we're also seeing other offerings come into the conversation more often now in terms of, do you have benefits on this, as ID theft, pet insurance, student loan repayment, educational opportunities. Really a lot of chatter around that, and a lot of brokers I've been talking to are talking about this being requested more and more as well. So it's not the same old when it comes to benefits. You guys, you've got to get innovative. You've got to figure out what you're going to need to offer to attract and retain the most talented people you need to help you get your business done. So let's take a look here at mental health benefits. I talked about, a few minutes ago about how the whole person is really important. Mental health benefits well-being. And let's face it, mental health is at an all-time low. Good mental health is at an all-time low for employees, adding to other workplace woes caused by COVID. This graph shows a 48% increase in risk of depression, a 45% increase in anxiety, and a 22% increase in stress over this last year. And it's critical that employers look at mental health as importantly as physical health, because each impacts the other. It truly does. More and more companies are offering employee assistance programs, EAPs, than ever before. It's a great thing to offer. But in the past, the usage of it has been very low because knowledge of it by employees. What does it do? We don't market it very well. We don't educate our employees well enough. Some employees have a fear that their employers are going to know I called looking for financial help, or I called saying I was depressed, or whatever it might be. So we're slowly chipping away at that stigma by offering free access to therapy and other clinical tools. They are more necessary than ever. And we're seeing more and more open dialogue about the importance of mental health. Think about Prince William and Prince Harry and how they talked about their mental health after losing their mother, Princess Diana, to help. And they've been very, very active in the mental health community in the UK in terms of saying it's a strength to seek help for what we have issues with. It's not a weakness. And as we know, untreated mental issues can cause people to spiral out of control. The isolation and everything we've been going through the last year, not being able to go do things as socially as we used to, it's taking a toll on people. And employers who identify new ways and ongoing ways to support the mental health of their workforce will ultimately see better company and bottom line performance. Well-being or wellness, employee health, well-being, and safety must become embedded in corporate cultures. We're seeing more emphasis on leadership development around helping your people, your employees, stay healthy, resilient, and productive. Again, whole person at work, more than just get your work done, more interest in the whole person. Beyond offering wellness, well-being benefits, employers really need to emphasize giving clear direction to their people, giving them time to focus, and offering a supportive work environment. It's just really more and more important to people looking for jobs and for companies who want to retain people to really be aware of and support that whole person. So here's a slide also that talks about employers addressing the whole person health. While workplace safety and sanitary measures are mandated at local government levels, employers know this is the right thing to do and a must do for workforce health. We talked earlier about virtual wellness resources, telehealth, etc., relying on its ease and accessibility. Virtual engagement programs are an absolute must. Employees need to feel connected and not so isolated. Just seeing each other at Zoom meetings is not enough. It's just not enough connectedness or engagement. And it's important to stress a caring and supportive culture. So you got to get innovative with that as well. And you got to really focus on it because it's important to everyone. Flexible work schedules, again, and locations are more important than ever. And this is more than working remotely. This is also when you work. When are you at your most productive? What demands are there on your time beyond work demands, family demands, elder care demands, things of that nature? That's why people are stressed out. That's why people are anxious. There's just so many demands on people these days. So employers are really expanding benefits more than ever to help in these areas. Oops, go down. There we go. Again, going back to whole person health and wellness, everything we've been talking about here, it really culminates in understanding the importance of the whole person working for us, supporting the employee life experience through their well-being, their wellness, their mental health, having corporate wellness programs, understanding there's a lot of financial stress out there right now. How can we help employees that are experiencing financial stress? And again, employee assistance programs. If you don't offer that already, take a look at that. It's something that if you want to be competitive and you really want to help your employees, you need to get on with and help them out. And I really like this model of the maturing well-being strategy within a company. I got this from a Josh Burson report about HR predictions for 2021. You see the foundational part of the strategy is all about healthcare benefit. Well-being is a healthcare benefit. You go up another level and it's about personal improvement. Then you go up another level and it talks about business performance. And ultimately, the level 4 is well-being for social good, the social aspect of sustainability, health and welfare of everyone, not only our employees, the environment, our communities, everything. So I thought this was just a really interesting maturity model here. So let's talk a little bit about rewards programs for the employee experience. Recognition and rewards are key drivers of the employee experience and the workplace culture. A recent Forbes survey showed that 40% say they would put more energy into their work if they were recognized more often. Think about that. 40% would put more energy into their work if they were recognized more often. So what does recognized mean? It can mean a lot of things, right? The same study also showed that companies with recognition programs outperform those than those without them by an average of 14% in areas of engagement, customer service, and productivity. Historically, employee recognition has usually been around focusing on length of service, productivity against benchmarks, retirement. You've been here 25 years, yeah, you get to retire. But companies now need to think more strategically about what your company deems as praiseworthy, as recognition worthy. Perhaps recognize behaviors tied to company culture and values, team wins, knowledge sharing, innovation, collaboration. While the outcomes are important in terms of achieving that benchmark, the behaviors that go into that achievement are just as important, how we got there. And while money is important to everyone, for sure, culture and mission, as we discussed earlier, matter more than ever today. Culture and mission matter a lot. It really does. And so think about what you can do to make your rewards programs supportive of these. Many companies are using technology like their HRIS to allow for peer-to-peer recognition. That's very big in the area of recognition these days. And micro recognition, peer recognition, no longer just the boss giving attaboys, attagirls, or saying great job, but employees thanking each other for support, collaboration, caring. Many vendors out there have systems that accrue points for employees recognizing each other and have some sort of reward system that they can choose from based on accumulating points. Of course, there's a cost tied to that. There's a cost tied to everything. But the whole thing about recognition and peer-to-peer is more about genuinely being appreciative of the people we work with and for, and telling them what they've done well versus always telling them what they haven't done well. It's huge these days. And also, it's really important to continuously evaluate the effectiveness of your employee rewards and recognition programs and tools. Retool them as the company and your workforce evolves. You got to evolve. Companies constantly evolve. You got to continue to do it. So, and let's continue talking about the employee experience in terms of post-pandemic retention. Excuse me. Once the pandemic is over, a recent survey by Eagle Hill Consulting indicates that 25% or more plan to quit their jobs once we get more on the other side of the pandemic. And that 25% is made up of millennials and working parents. We talked earlier about wellness, well-being, mental health due to stress, burnout, workload, family. That's what's driving this desire to do something else, start something new. Another survey by Live Career shared in January said nearly 30% of remote workers will quit their jobs if they aren't allowed to work remotely. 30% will quit if not allowed to work remotely. And another 62% said they will only work for companies that offer remote and flexible work options. That's huge. 62%, more than half, want to know that their company is going to offer some sort of flexible work options. Realistically evaluate the successes and failures of remote working in your own company during the last year. How can you improve on those? Be sure you talk to your employees who are remote and actively listen. Be open to future work arrangements. Be open to them. You need to show your organization truly cares about their work-life balance and job satisfaction, but only if they really do. You got to be sincere about that, and you got to put some backbone behind it for sure. Make sure employees who've worked remotely know the safety, cleanliness, and health measures you put in place at the workplace to assuage fears of coming back to work. The same studies I've quoted have also shown that it's the millennials that really miss the workplace most because they miss the social aspect more than anything else. Benefits, you can help stress benefits of on-site work to get people to come back to working on site, such as real-time, person-to-person collaboration, fewer distractions, more accessible resources, training, hands-on training, things of that nature. And some companies are making it easier for employees to return to the work site. They're turning conference rooms into socially distanced learning spaces for their kids with paid teachers and fitness instructors. And some companies are working with local providers like the YMCA to arrange similar care for kids as well as for employees with elder care issues. Again, cost, money. Companies have spent a ton of money retrofitting their workplace for distancing and cleanliness and sanitization spaces and things of that nature. And childcare and elder care is no longer just an employee problem, it's an employer problem. And the savvy employers are thinking about how they can help with that. Other benefits being tried by employers include incentives such as commute time counting as working hours. That's really a new one. Because you end up working less during the day, then you have shorter work hours because you're including your commute time in whatever your 8-hour schedule or whatever it is would be. More paid time off, always. A reimbursed commute, flexible scheduling, improved office space with more private workspace options, relaxing their dress code perhaps as well, things that are going to encourage people to come back to the workplace in a different way than they did before. We've really got to get innovative and think about what's going to work for our company, our environment, our people. And this is a question that was answered in this Live Career survey about if going back to the office is inevitable, how many days a week would professionals like to be office-based? The #1 answer at 30% was 3 days a week. If they have to go back to the office, 3 days a week is the max for them. Next highest was 2 days a week at 25%, 19% at 1, and 9% at 4 days a week. You see, nobody said all 5. Again, flexibility, flexibility, flexibility. So nothing demonstrated the importance of meaningful and continuous employee communication than dealing with COVID over the last year. We learned we had to quickly open up channels to talk, share, listen, get feedback, and act on the feedback. Make sure that you have and you continue establishing a cadence, regular cadence of someone in your senior leadership team, CEO, COO, etc., conducting town hall type meetings to let all employees know and hear at the same time what's going on in a company, how are sales, what's the latest intel on our competition, are any decisions being made about returning to the workplace? If not, when can we expect to hear something about it? Tell people what you do and don't know. Be honest, be as transparent as you can. And if you don't know, just tell them you don't know right now, but you'll let them know as soon as you do. Make sure to continue some type of regularly scheduled organizational announcements about new employees, internal promotions, departmental realignments, etc. You want to keep all of your employees, remote or otherwise, connected to the whole company, a whole person, whole company. You got to keep that connectivity there for sure. Local and federal officials are constantly in the news about updated travel restrictions, face mask wearing mandates, workplace sanitization protocols. You want to make sure to keep your employees updated about your protocols. If employees are traveling for pleasure, what are your requirements about quarantining? How should employees communicate about their travels or family member exposure to COVID? It is important for leaders to always think about communicating strategically, prep for every employee meeting, have an agenda, objectives, etc. Recap at the end of each meeting what was agreed, next steps, expectations. There are so many distractions for people working remotely and at home these days. Don't assume that everyone in the meeting has heard the same thing. Do a quick recap of bullet points, etc. Super important. And listening has never been more important than it is now in this virtual meeting world. You want to err on the side of over communicating and asking for feedback. Don't make assumptions, probe for clarity. We've moved from annual engagement surveys to pulse surveys to analytics platforms and now to action platforms. What does action platforms mean? It means continuous response tied to internal systems with alerts, feedback, and integration with CX, customer experience systems, that kind of thing. So communication, listening, right? Foundational, always, always. So that is the end of my presentation. So let me get back over here and stop recording, and we can talk about if there are any questions.